Hello, everyone. My name is Audrey, and at 41 years old, my parents defended my sister. After she hit my daughter and stole $200, I called the police. What followed? In court ended our family forever. You'll realize why a few thousand can sometimes be enough to break up a family. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from. I reside in Chicago with my husband Make and our 16-year-old daughter Emily. The tale I am telling you today occurred 15 months ago. To assist you grasp this story, I need to explain what caused the family tension. It all began when my daughter lost $23,200 in cash, which she had accumulated for years. It all started on a regular evening after dinner. Make and I were downstairs discussing our weekend plans. We heard frantic footsteps on the staircase. My daughter Emily dashed down to the living room, pale and terrified. When I noticed her strange countenance, I got up and worriedly said, "What is happening, Emily?" Emily spoke in a trembling voice. "Mom, my small safe is gone. My entire funds totaled $23,200. It is all gone." Make and I were astonished when we heard Emily's statements. Emily mentioned the little safe, which I gave her as a gift 6 years ago, after she exhibited an interest in learning how to save money. It is 13 by 9 by 9 in and is ideal for storing her funds. Make asked quietly, "Did you check thoroughly? Maybe you left it somewhere in your room and forgot." Emily shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. She told us, "I searched my entire room, Mom. I turned everything over down and couldn't find it anywhere." After that, we dashed to Emily's room without wasting another second. The room was disorganized, indicating that our daughter had searched everywhere. I began checking under the bed while Make unlocked the closet. Emily proceeded to look through drawers and bookcases. We searched for about 25 minutes and still couldn't find the safe. Emily sat on her bed, eyes filled with tears, and continued, "Last night, the safe was still in my desk drawer. I'm certain of that." With a contemplative expression, I gazed around the room once more. There was no evidence of a break-in. The windows remained tightly locked, and no other valuables, such as her laptop or iPad, were taken. Everything was still intact. While Make soothed Emily, I began to consider the alternatives. Why would burglars break in and only take the safe, ignoring other important items? And how could they enter the house without leaving a trace? With a heavy heart, I told my daughter, "You might have mistakenly placed the safe somewhere and forgotten. We'll look more closely tomorrow." But a sense of unease began to rise within me. Emily rushed into the heated mood, engulfing the room as if she remembered something. She informed us, "Mom and Dad, I remember now. Aunt Brittany came to our house this morning." When I heard my sister's name, my heart felt constricted. With a serious expression on my face, I asked my daughter Emily if she suspected Aunt Brittany. In that quiet moment, Emily nodded slightly, her eyes filled with concern and perplexity. I shook my head and told my daughter Emily that Brittany is family. She would not do that. After a long pause, Emily took a big breath and said shakily, "Mom, approximately 12 days ago, when Aunt Brittany arrived for dinner, she walked into my room, saw the safe, and appeared quite intrigued. She even inquired about how much I had saved." Make looked at me doubtfully and said, "Audrey, we need to explore every possibility." He then questioned Emily, "Did Brittany come here this morning?" Emily nodded, then continued more confidently, "Yes. I opened the door for her and walked into the kitchen for breakfast. Aunt Brittany had already left when I returned to the living room." With my mind in turmoil, I attempted to defend my sister. I informed my husband and daughter, "There must be a mistake. Brittany couldn't do something like that." Make placed his hand on my shoulder, peered into my eyes, and firmly stated, "Audrey, we have security cameras. Let's look at this morning's footage." This suggestion made me feel uncomfortable. It had never occurred to me to suspect my own sister. Without much thought, I shook my head and told my husband, "I don't agree with you suspecting my sister." Make groaned and asked, "Audrey, don't you remember what happened 4 days ago?" Hearing my husband's remarks, my mind wandered back to the pictures from 4 days ago at my parents' place. A shiver rushed down my spine as each detail came back to mind. My parents contacted 4 days ago in the evening and asked us to come home immediately. They had something vital to announce. The tension was palpable from the moment I walked into the living room. Brittany sat there with a peculiar smile, which I later realized was a warning sign. This was not the first time I had seen that smile. Brittany has used it on numerous occasions when she is going to make an absurd request. Brittany borrowed my new car and crashed it into a light pole, which I still remember vividly. Then, my parents requested me to understand my sister and not make an insurance claim to protect Brittany's driving record. For example, when she temporarily borrowed my credit card to purchase a luxury purse worth $2,400, my parents persuaded me not to call the police because it was a minor error. Looking back, I see a pattern. Brittany does something terrible. My parents cover for her, and I'm expected to understand and forgive. This trend has been repeated for years, but this time was significantly worse. When we first got down, Brittany abruptly declared, "I'm getting married in 3 months, and I need to borrow $35,000 from you for the wedding." I nearly choked on the water I was sipping. My pulse raced when I heard that number. I could feel Make holding his breath next to me. The entire room was silent for a few seconds, with the exception of Dad's antique clock ticking steadily. This was Brittany's largest request to yet, but it was not surprising. My sister's adult life has been a series of rash financial decisions. At 26, she had borrowed money from me 3 times to pay off credit card debt. At 29, she left her solid career to find her passion, and my parents covered her rent for 6 months. Brittany, 33, had yet to acquire any lessons about financial responsibility. After a brief lull, I spoke out, attempting to remain cool, but unable to conceal my disbelief. I asked Brittany, $35,000? Are you planning a royal wedding? Brittany did not laugh at my humor. Her eyes seemed strangely determined. She sat up straight, looked at me, and said, "A wedding is the most important day of a person's life. I need it at the Plaza Hotel. Derek's family is all prosperous company owners. I do not want people to believe we are inferior." Derek was Brittany's boyfriend. They had barely known each other for 8 months before deciding to marry. My sister's hurried marriage stunned me. At this time, Meg gently intervened, telling Brittany, "Brittany, the most beautiful wedding is when everyone is happy, not when everyone is broke." When Brittany heard Meg's statements, she looked at my husband aggressively and stated, "This is not a joke. My future depends on it. Derek's relatives will criticize our entire family during this wedding." After hearing my sister say that, I attempted to remain calm and responded, "Britt, you need to understand that $35,000 isn't pocket cash. We can have a lovely wedding at a more affordable price, perhaps approximately $12,000. After hearing my offer, Brittany firmly stated, "I can't do that, Audrey. I previously promised Derek that the wedding would be spectacular. The Plaza Hotel is the only place that can match our expectations." Make noticed the standoff in the discussion and asked Brittany, "But why isn't Derek contributing to the costs? If his family is wealthy, as you mentioned, they would undoubtedly want to help." When Make asked, Brittany blushed and added, "Derek is saving money to buy us a house once we marry. He can't afford the wedding." After hearing Brittany's explanation, I sighed and replied, "I apologize, Brittany. I can't assist you with this amount." Brittany slammed her hand on the table, causing the teacups to tremble, and yelled, "You think you're so rich, showing off your new Tesla and Hawaii vacation, then being stingy about helping your sister once in a lifetime." Before I could react, my father stepped up. His face flushed with rage, and he demanded angrily, "What sort of sister are you if you can't care for your sister? Do you know Nathan next door? He's not as wealthy as you, yet he bought his sister a 2-bedroom house while you won't even pay for your sister's wedding." My parents' statements made me angry. I'd helped them pay off their house, covered Brittany's college tuition, and always tried to be a decent daughter and sister, but they never thought it was enough. Make sensed my rage and squeezed my palm beneath the table as if to calm me down. I took a big breath, looked Dad in the eyes, and stated, "Dad, I am not this family's banker. Make and I work hard for everything we own. $35,000 is a lot of money, and I believe it is unnecessary for a one-day party." My mother, who had been silent the entire time, finally spoke up, sadly, asking, "So, you won't help your sister?" After Mom asked her question, I informed her I needed to speak with Make alone. Make and I went to the porch shortly after that to discuss how much money we had given Brittany. About 5 minutes later, we returned. The atmosphere remained strained. I glanced at my parents and sister and told them, "We will give you $6,000 as a wedding gift. That's a realistic amount we can assist with." When Brittany heard the sum, she jumped up quickly and remarked contemptuously, "I don't need your charity money. I'll figure it out myself." She turned abruptly and went out of the room. The door crashed behind her, rattling the entire wall. My parents stood up and went into the rear room without saying anything, leaving us in the oppressive mood. On the way home, I was still angry and bewildered. Meg tried to console me, but I knew this wouldn't be easy. When she didn't get her way, Brittany always found a way to respond. Returning to my daughter's missing safe story. After hearing my husband mention the earlier event and recalling what had happened, I reluctantly nodded and said, "All right, we'll check the cameras." I was hoping Brittany would be absolutely innocent when I reviewed the cams, but what happened next changed my opinion of my sister. With my heart beating, we all stared at my phone screen. I launched the front entrance security camera app and rewound to this morning. The footage definitely shows Brittany arriving at our residence around 8:10 a.m. In the video, she rang the doorbell, Emily opened it, and Brittany entered after exchanging a few words. What was notable was that Brittany arrived with only her phone. Watching the video brought up recollections of similar situations from the past. I remembered Emily when she was younger. Emily's birthday money was vanished after Brittany's visit. My folks believed Emily must have dropped it. They advised me not to suspect my sister without reason, or the time my watch went missing while Brittany stayed overnight. Each time I felt like I knew what had happened despite the lack of hard evidence, and the entire family was always eager to keep the peace. More significantly, I trusted my sister not to cause any harm to the family. Make squeezed my hand while we watched. The camera could no longer record anything after they entered the house. With tensions increasing, we waited to see when Brittany would leave. Brittany reappeared at the front door at 8:26, exactly 16 minutes after her arrival. But this time, she was holding a little pink bag large enough to keep Emily's mini safe. When I saw that vision, Meg took a big breath and Emily burst into tears. I felt as if a weight was weighing on my shoulders. Despite the fact that the evidence was right in front of my eyes, I couldn't believe my sister could do such things. There was no place for doubt or cover-ups anymore. For years, I had given Brittany the benefit of the doubt, believing that the unusual happenings were mere coincidence. I believed my parents' words that family must protect one another, but this time there was nothing to justify, no way to avoid the reality. Brittany had crossed the line, and I felt betrayed by my unwavering belief in familial relationships. After a long silence, I turned off the video, looked at my husband and daughter, and told them, "We need to talk to Brittany." Make asked me with determined eyes, "What if she denies it?" With my voice lowering, I replied, "We have evidence. She cannot argue with that." My heart felt as if it had stopped beating. There was no plausible explanation for Brittany coming empty-handed, but departing with a bag carrying an object the same size as Emily's safe. The grim reality had surfaced. Looking into Emily's tearful eyes, I firmly grasped her shoulder and said, "I'll get your money back. Promise." At this point, I had a hunch that the approaching encounter would be about more than just the safe, money, and family. Relationships would be strained to their limits. With a heavy heart, I picked up the phone and called Brittany. After a few rings, she responded with her normal happy tone. "Hello, Audrey. What up?" Trying to remain cool, I inquired, "Where are you?" Brittany responded with a slightly shocked tone. "I'm at Mom and Dad's. Is there an issue?" After hearing the response, I nodded to Make and Emily. I told Brittany, "We're going to talk about the money for the party. We will be there in 15 minutes. Brittany said, "You changed your mind about money? Great. Come over. I will wait." After hanging up the phone, the three of us hastily got into the car and drove to my parents' house, which was about 12 miles away. No one spoke during the trip. Tension and fear flooded the cramped area of the automobile. I had to lie to Brittany because I knew we wouldn't be able to see her if I said the truth. When we arrived, my parents and Brittany were sitting in the living room. When they saw us walk in with somber expressions, my mother knew something was wrong. My mother looked at me worriedly and said, "Audrey, what's wrong?" Without answering, I walked straight to Brittany, looked her in the eyes, and asked calmly, "Brittany, why did you come to my house this morning?" The blunt inquiry caught Brittany off guard, and she struggled for a moment before saying, I just went by to see Emily. I missed the kid." Emily took a step forward, looked Brittany in the eyes, and asked shakily but determinedly, "Aunt Brittany, please give me back my mini safe and the money inside." Brittany appeared stunned, jumped up, and approached Emily angrily, asking, "Are you claiming I took your money?" Emily did not back down. She began to say, "This morning, only you came to our house." Without waiting for Emily to finish, Brittany struck my daughter across the face. The slap resonated around the room, surprising everyone. Without hesitation, I stepped forward, grabbed Brittany's arm, and pulled her away from my daughter. With an outraged tone, I demanded, "How dare you hit my daughter?" Brittany challenged me, saying, "She lied to me. If you're tough enough, go ahead and hit me. If you touch me, you're just a coward who assaults women." When I heard those words, my heart pounded so violently that I thought it would burst out of my chest. My hands shook with rage, like they could shatter anything they touched. I'd never felt so hateful against anyone, especially someone I'd loved and protected for years. Brittany was standing there defying me, having stolen my daughter's money and slapped my child. I felt betrayed, used, and appalled by her acts. All the sisterly feelings I'd developed over the years appeared to go in an instant. While I was battling to control my wrath, Make moved forward, placed his hand on my shoulder, and drew me back. Make looked at me with hard eyes, something I rarely saw in my husband, and said firmly, "Don't. I'll handle this." None of us could respond to what Make did next. He stepped between Brittany and Emily, holding a steady arm out to keep Brittany at a distance. "You take one more step toward my daughter," he warned, voice icy, "and you will regret it." Brittany lurched backward, her eyes wide with shock and pain from the confrontation. Then she tried to shove past him. Make blocked her and pushed her away from Emily, sending her stumbling back onto the couch. My father tried to interfere, saying in a frightened voice, "Enough! Stop this right now!" My mother covered her face, wailing and begging, "Please stop it!" Emily stood in the corner of the room, paralyzed, her eyes wide with dread. I felt completely helpless, unsure what to do in this situation. Moments seemed like centuries. Finally, the room stilled. Brittany scrambled upright, cheeks flushed scarlet, and whispered chokefully, "I'll call the cops. You will go to jail for assaulting me." Make took his phone from his pocket, his gaze never leaving Brittany. With a frigid calm, he said, "I'll contact the police, too. Let them come here and discover who the true criminal is." When Make was ready to hit the call button, my father exclaimed, "Enough, everyone! Stop!" His voice resonated across the room like thunder, causing us all to jump. The space abruptly collapsed into oppressive quiet. My father looked at each of us and remarked severely, "We're a family, and this is how we settle problems? By using violence and threats against one another?" At that point, I realized our entire family had crossed a threshold beyond which we could not return. The words and deeds that had just occurred would create wounds that may never fully heal, and it all began with a tiny safe and $23,200. After everyone had calmed down, I stared into my parents' eyes and told them firmly, "Brittany stole Emily's safe, which contained $23,200 in savings. We have evidence from the front door security camera." After hearing me finish, Brittany refused to accept it, shouting in anger, "I didn't take anything. There is a conspiracy to frame me." My father stood up, his face blazing with rage, but instead of staring at Brittany, he glanced directly at Make. He pointed at my husband's face and yelled, "You dare lay hands on my daughter in my own home? What kind of man are you?" Make stood firm, fearless, and said, "The kind who protects his child when she's attacked and robbed." My mother held Brittany, looked at me reproachfully, and said, "Audrey, can't you control your husband? He just assaulted your sister." I couldn't take the unfairness any longer and yelled, "What about Brittany slapping my daughter?" My father glared at me with scornful eyes and shouted words that surprised me. "If you can't discipline your kid, let your sister do it." Those remarks were like a knife thrust through my heart. I felt my entire body tremble with wrath and pain. I questioned how my father could say that. How could he defend a thief and someone violent? I did not want to dispute anymore. Without saying anything, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. When the phone connected, I spoke clearly and confidently. Hello? I need to report a theft and assault. A family member just slapped my 15-year-old daughter, and her $23,200 savings were stolen. We need immediate assistance. While I was speaking with the 911 operator, the room fell silent. My mother started crying. My father stood there with an amazed expression, and Brittany paled. After hanging up the phone, I told everyone, the police will be here in about 12 minutes. We'll all have to give statements about what happened. Brittany abruptly rose up, grabbed her handbag and car keys, and prepared to depart. But before she could reach the door, Make had shifted and was in her path. Make stared at Brittany with steely eyes and said, "You take one more step, and you'll add fleeing the scene to what you've already done. The cops are on their way." Brittany backed away, eyes filled with hatred and dread, and sat down on the sofa. She knew Make was not joking. Perhaps she recognized that fleeing the scene would only make matters worse. My parents stood there absolutely powerless. They were used to Brittany always being covered for and excused, but this time they realized the situation was beyond their control. Emily, my daughter, stood behind me, gripping my hand tightly. I could feel both fear and gratitude in her gaze. For the first time, she witnessed her parents stand up to protect her, rather than compromise for family harmony. The mood in my parents' living room was suddenly more intense than ever. We sat quietly, waiting for the sound of police sirens. Every passing second seemed like torment, but I knew I was doing the right thing. Police came to my parents' house shortly after the argument, responding to my call. 2 officers, one male and one female, listened to the stories of all people involved. They watched the video from the security camera I had stored on my phone and recorded everyone's statements. After gathering enough information, the police invited us to the station to complete the investigation. Brittany, who was now calmer, continued to deny responsibility, insisting she did not remove the safe and Emily was mistaken. At the police station, after carefully reviewing the footage, the case officer looked at Brittany and remarked, "Miss Barker, the evidence is quite apparent. You arrived at your sister's house empty-handed and departed with a bag large enough to contain the stolen safe. Would you like to update your statement?" When confronted with incontrovertible evidence, Brittany burst into tears and admitted her guilt. "I took it. I didn't realize it had so much money. I assumed there were only a few thousand. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry." The officer nodded before turning to me and saying, "Ms. Barker, because this is a family theft, we normally allow the parties time to examine their options before filing charges. Do you want to think more about this?" Without hesitation, I looked the officer in the eyes and answered, "I've thought it through. I'd like to proceed with this case." Brittany began crying harder, pleading with me, "Audrey, please, I'll repay the money. Don't do this to me. Please." My parents pleaded with me too, but I'd already made my decision. Brittany didn't just steal a large sum of money. She struck my daughter, a child. This wasn't behavior that could be ignored. The officer nodded, then added, "So, we'll file theft charges against Miss Brittany Barker. Mr. and Mrs. Barker may also face charges related to the altercation. However, since Miss Brittany struck a minor first, and Mr. Barker acted to defend his child, the court will take that into account." After everything that happened that day, I saw a future where my family would never be the same again. But I knew I was doing the right thing, teaching Brittany that actions have consequences. 10 days after the police station meeting, Brittany and my parents came to our house. There was no shouting this time, only tears and pleading. Brittany stared at me with red eyes and a trembling voice. "Audrey, I'm so sorry for what I did. I don't even know what I was thinking. I needed money for the wedding, and when I saw Emily's savings, I just couldn't resist. I swear I'll pay everything back within a month. Please drop the charges. I can't have a criminal record." My father spoke urgently. "Daughter, think about your sister's future. A criminal record will destroy her career and her life. She's admitted her mistake. She'll never do it again." My mother joined in through tears. "Audrey, please forgive your sister. We all make mistakes. Don't let one mistake ruin everything." I gazed at them and my heart ached. Part of me wanted to forgive, to let go, to mend what was broken. But another part of me knew If Brittany didn't face the consequences, she'd never learn. While my parents continued pleading, my thoughts went back to what had happened. Brittany had slapped my daughter, a 15-year-old child, and hadn't even apologized to her. All she cared about was herself and her future. Even worse, my parents hadn't once turned to Emily to ask if she was okay. Not once did they comfort her or show concern. Their only focus was Brittany. I felt deep grief as I saw Emily standing in the hallway, hurt and confused. How could her family treat her this way? First stealing her savings, then hitting her, and now ignoring her pain. I was raised believing family always comes first. But standing there, looking at my parents, defending the one who did wrong and abandoning the one who was wronged, I realized this wasn't the family I wanted my daughter to grow up in. These weren't the values I wanted to pass down. After taking a breath, I looked into my parents' eyes and said quietly but firmly, "I'm sorry, but I can't drop the lawsuit. You didn't just steal, Brittany. You hit my daughter. That's not something I can overlook. You have to take responsibility for what you've done." The air in the room felt heavy. Everyone knew the decision was final. Brittany's expression changed from guilt to fury. Her tears vanished, replaced by bitterness. She stood up abruptly and shouted, "So this is how you treat your own sister? Fine. You want me to go to jail? Okay. But don't think I'll ever forgive you. You'll regret this, Audrey. You'll see." My father shook his head in disappointment. "From now on, you are no longer my daughter. Family comes first, but you chose to send your sister to jail instead of protecting her. I'll never forgive you." My mother sobbed harder, staring at me with pain in her eyes. "How could you do this to your sister, Audrey? You're destroying her future. I'll never see you again unless you withdraw the case." Those words felt like knives piercing my chest. I had always loved them, always tried to be the good daughter, but I couldn't accept that family meant tolerating injustice. The atmosphere grew unbearable. Make finally spoke up, his voice low but steady. "I think it's best if you leave. We all need some time to breathe." Brittany turned toward me one last time and hissed, "You'll pay for this, I promise." Then she stormed out. When the door closed, I felt like part of me closed with it. I had lost my parents and my sister, but I had kept my integrity and my daughter's trust. In the following days, I started receiving calls from relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, all calling to scold me for turning in my sister. I tried to explain, but they'd already heard Brittany's version. She and my parents had twisted the story, telling everyone I'd reported her over a few $100s. One uncle sneered over the phone, "You're heartless, Audrey. You destroyed your sister's life over pocket change." When I tried to explain that it was $23,200 and that Brittany had hit Emily, he laughed. "Don't justify yourself. Your parents told us everything." The next day, Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, called. Her tone was sharp and disappointed. "Audrey, I can't believe you. How much did Brittany even take? A few hundred? And you sent her to jail for that?" I tried to stay calm. "Aunt Carol, it wasn't a few hundred. It was over $23,000, and she slapped Emily." There was silence on the other end, then a hesitant, "That doesn't sound like Brittany. She can be impulsive, yes, but she'd never hurt a child." After that, I received a text from my cousin Jason. "You traitor. What have you done to Brittany? You had your husband beat her and then called the cops. Your family is sick." That was when I stopped trying to explain. I sent Brittany a short message. "I intended to settle this quietly. Make and I were considering a lesser sentence, but you went too far. I won't explain myself to anyone. Time will show the truth." Then I sent a message to the entire family group. "You've only heard one side. The stolen amount was $23,200, not a few hundred. Brittany slapped my daughter. I have video evidence of everything, which will be presented in court. I won't discuss this further until after the trial. Then you'll know the truth." That evening, I sat alone in the dark living room, staring at a half-full glass of whiskey. Make joined me quietly, resting his hand on my shoulder. "Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest," he said softly. I nodded, tears burning behind my eyes. I always thought my parents were honest, that they raised us to take responsibility, but now they're doing the opposite of everything they taught me. Make squeezed my hand. "They'll see the truth in court. Don't worry about what people say. You did what was right." Emily, who'd been listening from the hallway, walked in and sat beside me. Despite everything she'd been through, she held her head high. She looked at me and said quietly, "I know you're doing the right thing, Mom. I'm proud of you." Her words gave me strength I didn't know I still had. Even if the world turned against me, I knew I'd done right by my daughter. 6 weeks later, the court date arrived. The county courthouse was packed with family members, some supporting me, others standing by Brittany. Make, Emily, and I sat beside our lawyer. Brittany sat across the room with her defense attorney. My parents sat directly behind her, refusing to look my way. The judge, a middle-aged woman with a calm yet stern face, began the hearing. Today, we are hearing the case of State versus Brittany Barker, charged with second-degree theft and assault of a minor. The prosecutor presented the evidence, the security footage, Emily's testimony, my statements, and Brittany's earlier confession. The courtroom was silent as the footage played, showing Brittany arriving empty-handed and leaving with a bag the exact size of the stolen safe. When it was Brittany's turn, she stood, trembling. "Your Honor, I stole the safe from my niece. It contained $23,200. I have no excuse except that I needed money for my wedding. I also admit I slapped Emily when she accused me. I regret what I did deeply." Her lawyer pleaded for leniency, emphasizing it was her first offense, that she'd cooperated and promised repayment. After hearing both sides, the judge delivered the verdict. "Miss Barker, you broke the law and betrayed your family's trust. You stole a substantial amount from your niece and assaulted her. The court sentences you to a 14-month suspended sentence, a $2,500 fine, and full repayment of $23,200. You are also required to attend anger management and rehabilitation programs." The judge turned to Make and said, "Mr. Barker, the court recognizes your intent to protect your daughter, but reminds you that physical confrontation is not encouraged. You are fined $600. When the trial ended, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Justice had been done, even if it cost me my family. As I walked past my parents and Brittany, I wanted to say something, anything, but they turned away, refusing to meet my eyes. In that moment, I knew this wound would take years to heal, if it ever did. Following the trial, everything changed. 10 days after Brittany's conviction, a relative told me that her fiancé, Derek, had called off their engagement. He was a prominent lawyer, and he couldn't imagine marrying someone with a criminal record, especially one for theft and child assault. Shortly afterward, Brittany lost her job at the financial firm where she worked. Her employer found out about the case, and she was terminated immediately. With a record and no income, Brittany was forced to move back in with my parents. They still refused to speak to me. In their eyes, I was the reason their daughter's life had fallen apart. Despite several messages I sent, short, calm, and sincere, there was never a reply. What was fascinating, though, was how quickly the rest of the family's opinion began to shift once the truth came out. Uncle Robert, who had angrily called me weeks earlier, sent me a message. "I'm sorry, Audrey. I shouldn't have judged without knowing. I read the court records. Brittany really did those things. I was wrong." Even Aunt Carol, who had scolded me harshly, unexpectedly stopped by our house one afternoon. She carried a small box of homemade cookies and said softly, "Audrey, I owe you an apology. I believed your parents' version without even asking for yours. I see now what really happened. I'm sorry." Her eyes were filled with remorse, and for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. But not every change was good. My parents became social outcasts within the extended family. Cousins and relatives started avoiding them at gatherings. I later heard that during a birthday party for one of my uncles, nearly no one sat at the same table with them. People whispered about how they had protected a thief while condemning their own granddaughter. My cousin Mark told me, "Everyone knows now that your parents lied about the amount and the slap. They're embarrassed, Audrey. No one trusts them anymore." On the other side, something unexpected happened for Emily and me. Many relatives began sending her letters and cards, little notes of encouragement, telling her she was brave and that what she endured was unfair. Some even included small gifts. Even so, Emily had suffered more than anyone realized. For all her strength, the betrayal had left deep emotional scars. We decided to take her to a therapist who helped her work through the trauma. Those sessions made a real difference. Slowly, my daughter began smiling again. Through it all, Make and I stood firm in our decision. We didn't regret it, even if it had cost us the family we once knew. We had taught Emily one of life's hardest but most important lessons, that doing the right thing sometimes means standing alone. One night, while we were eating dinner, Emily looked up at me with a thoughtful expression. "Mom," she asked, "do you think we'll ever talk to Grandpa, Grandma, or Aunt Brittany again?" I sighed and set down my fork. I don't know, sweetheart, I said honestly. Time will tell. But I hope one day they'll understand we did the right thing. Micah reached across the table and gently took my hand. Sometimes doing the right thing comes with a price, he said softly, but that's what defines who we are. In that moment, I felt both the weight and the clarity of our choices. We had lost our extended family, yes, but we had gained peace, integrity, and unity within our own home. 15 months have passed since the case ended, and life has slowly returned to something resembling normal. Emily is now 16. She's stronger, more independent, and wiser than many adults I know. With therapy and time, she's healed remarkably. We decided to teach her financial management properly this time. Instead of using a safe, she now has her own bank account. She manages her savings through an app, learning about deposits, budgets, and interest. I wish I had thought of that earlier, but maybe we needed to go through this to understand it. Our relationship as a small family, just the three of us, has become even closer. Make and I still have quiet evenings together, sometimes reminiscing about the chaos that changed everything. Other times, we sit in silence, simply grateful that the storm has passed. My parents, however, still refuse to speak to me. They believe I betrayed them. They've chosen to see me as the reason for their suffering rather than acknowledging the truth. Brittany, according to family gossip, still lives with them. She works part-time at a local supermarket, a steep fall from her former position at the financial firm. The conversations about the incident have never completely died out. At every large family event where I'm still invited, whispers follow me. Some relatives say I was too harsh, that I destroyed my sister's future over a mistake. Others, those who truly understand, tell me quietly that I was right, that I did what they would have been too afraid to do. Most recently, during a cousin's wedding, one of my aunts approached me with a drink in hand and said with a sneer, "Audrey, your parents are so lonely now. Brittany has no future left, all because you couldn't forgive a small mistake." I looked straight into her eyes and said calmly, "Aunt, stealing $23,000 and hitting a child isn't a small mistake." She shook her head, turned, and walked away, leaving me with the same question that had haunted me for months. Was I too harsh? Did I destroy my family's happiness? Or did Brittany destroy it herself through her choices? There are nights I still replay it all. Every word, every decision, every tear. And each time I come to the same conclusion. I didn't ruin my family. Brittany did, the moment she chose greed over love, lies over truth, and pride over responsibility. Maybe forgiveness will come one day. Maybe it won't. But I've learned that peace doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes it's just knowing you did what was right, even when everyone else says you're wrong. Because sometimes the strongest love you can give your family is the love that refuses to enable their destruction. And that's what I chose. It wasn't dramatic. No tears, no hugs, just quiet acceptance of everything that had already been broken. Weeks turned into months, and the storm finally gave way to silence. Life, somehow, found a rhythm again. Emily started focusing on her studies. Make and I poured our energy into rebuilding the peace inside our home. There were evenings when the three of us would sit on the porch, listening to the faint hum of the city, saying nothing but knowing we were safe again. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking about Brittany, about the sister I once adored. I would remember our childhood, the way we used to share secrets late into the night, giggling until we fell asleep. There was a time when I thought nothing could break that bond, but blood alone can't hold people together. Choices do. One afternoon, while cleaning the house, I found an old photo album. Inside was a picture of Brittany and me in our 20s, smiling on a beach, sun in our hair, arms around each other. I traced my fingers over the image and felt a strange mixture of nostalgia and peace. I didn't feel hatred anymore, just sadness for what could have been. That evening, I showed the photo to Emily. She looked at it quietly, then asked, "Do you miss her?" I took a long breath before answering. I miss the version of her who loved without taking, the one who hadn't yet learned how to manipulate people's kindness. Emily nodded softly. I think sometimes people don't realize how much they hurt others until it's too late. Her words lingered. For the first time, I saw how much she had grown, how she understood pain and forgiveness better than most adults. Months passed. I heard from distant relatives that Brittany had completed her anger management program. She was still living with my parents, but had started volunteering at a local shelter. Someone mentioned she was quieter now, more withdrawn. Maybe remorse changes people in ways pride never could. Then, one gray Sunday morning, as rain tapped against the windows, I received a letter in the mail. There was no return address, just my name written in familiar handwriting. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. It was from Brittany. Dear Audrey, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to say this anyway. What I did was unforgivable. I hurt Emily, I hurt you, and I hurt our family. I wish I could take it back. You were right to press charges. It's taken me this long to understand that love without accountability isn't love at all. I'm sorry, not just for the theft, but for the years I took your kindness for granted. Please tell Emily I'm sorry too. Brittany. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, the letter resting in my hands. Make walked in and noticed the tears in my eyes. Is it from her? He asked quietly. I nodded. Yes, she apologized. He placed a hand on my shoulder. How do you feel? I thought about it. Lighter. Sad, but lighter. That night I read the letter to Emily. She listened in silence, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she said, Mom, I forgive her. I don't want to carry that anymore. I smiled through tears. You have a good heart, Emily. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. So do you. You just had to do the hard part first. And she was right. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means setting yourself free from the weight of someone else's choices. Months later, I saw Brittany again, unexpectedly. It was at a small family gathering for one of our cousins. The room fell silent when we locked eyes. For a moment, it felt like no time had passed at all. She walked over slowly, cautiously. Hi, Audrey, she whispered. Hi, I replied. We stood there, two women who had once been sisters in every sense of the word, now strangers bound by memory. Brittany's eyes were tired but softer. She looked at Emily, who was standing beside me, and said, I'm sorry. Emily nodded politely. I know, she said gently. Brittany turned back to me. Thank you for not letting me destroy myself completely. I didn't respond with words. I simply nodded. Because sometimes silence says everything. The rest of the evening passed without confrontation. We didn't sit together or talk again, but something had shifted, a quiet acknowledgement that maybe time could begin to heal what justice had broken. When we got home, Make looked at me and said, You did what most people couldn't. You stood your ground, even when it meant standing alone. I smiled faintly. I didn't do it alone. You and Emily were with me every step. He wrapped his arms around me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself exhale. 15 months later, life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. And maybe that's what healing really looks like. Not the return of what was lost, but the quiet strength to move forward without bitterness. Because sometimes doing the right thing doesn't bring reconciliation. It brings freedom. And freedom, I've learned, is worth every price.